Welcome back to Inside the Kentucky Derby. We are 93 days away from the first Saturday in May, and this weekend was one of those on the calendar where it started off as a trio of events that would award possible points on the road to the Kentucky Derby. It went down to 2 after 4 Bob Baffert trainees were entered in the Bob Lewis, and now it's down to 1 with the Holy Bull because the Withers is postponed until next weekend. So that just makes us look forward to a trio next weekend. Kevin Kirstein, Darren Rogers here with you once again. And of course, Inside the Kentucky Derby would not be possible without our friends at Woodford Reserve. You know, Woodford, Darren, as you know, you're a Woodford connoisseur. Mm-hmm. It's crafted from a grain recipe, 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. The recipe balances the sweetness of corn and the spice of rye with the nuttiness of malt to build the base of the world's most flavorful bourbon. That, of course, has more than 200 flavor notes to discover in every sip. Woodford Reserve is a spectacle for the senses. Please enjoy responsibly.
They call me the Explorer.
The Explorer.
I have explored each and every one of those flavor notes.
Yes, I'm sure you have. I like to enjoy a Woodford Old Fashioned at times. It's a special occasion, but that's sort of my go-to of a Woodford.
I'm an on the rocks guy.
Yeah,
on the rocks. Yep. It's a little splash of water from time to time.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so much.
It's all right.
It's on the day.
I mean, if you sip on it enough, the rocks will melt. But, you know, I don't know if we're bourbon sippers here. We're more like bourbon drinkers. All right. That's enough bourbon talk. That's a good plug for our friends down at Woodford Reserve. Saturday, Darren, the Holy Bull, we are awarding 20 points on the road to the Kentucky Derby to the winner in this race, which is pretty competitive on paper. We're going to dive in here hot and heavy to the Holy Bull field. And it's one of those races that sort of, you know, gets me going a little bit every year with the Florida series on the road to the Kentucky Derby. We know how productive Florida has been in years past, especially in California too. But, you know, Florida seems to be a hotbed for all the budding 3-year-olds for the Derby. And, you know, the Holy Bull sort of gets it going down there.
It does. In fact, every year when you look at once the Triple Crown nominees come out, by the way, they will be released to the public on Monday, February the 6th. You can check us out at KentuckyDerby.com. You can see me on Twitter at Derby Media or KK at Horse Racing KK. We'll have that information out there for all of the Triple Crown nominees. But every time you look at it with the maiden breakers, you know, the strength is always in Florida and California for the most part. This year, you could argue Louisiana with the Brad Cox string, but the numbers are always strong in Florida. And while the numbers are strong, we have a field of 8. I don't know, KK, what do you want to do? Just go horse by horse?
You know, I feel like we should. The morning line favorite, according to the morning line, is Cyclone Mischief, who's 2-1 on the morning line for the Alball family stables, as well as Castleton Lions and the Kilboy Estate, who stayed in as a breeder of this horse. Let's go horse by horse in this race. We'll go from the rail out. Grab your Brisnet past performances, Brisnet.com. They have, you know, a great selection there of handicapping products, workout information, and more on Brisnet.com. I'm using the Ultimate PPs to start the podcast today. Lord Miles breaks from the inside, who the big storyline of this race, Darren, is the Mucho Macho Man Stakes, which is run at a 1 mile distance on January the 1st. And 4 horses come out of that race. And it's, you know, who wants to carry that speed around 2 turns and who may be best at 2 turns. There's a lot of horses maybe trying here. This horse, who's one of 2 Saffie Joseph Jr. trainees in this race, ran 3rd, was beaten 3/4 of a length, but does add blinkers for this start. I think he's very intriguing.
He is intriguing. It was a fast pace in the Mucho Macho Man. They went 22-3, 45-1, and Lord Miles was away fine, but he was out-footed. He settled for the most part, 5th on the turn, and he was in the clear. He surged late. Was it a collapsing pace, even though the leader hung on? It was a fast race up front.
Yes.
And that's where it's difficult to assess. I think he closed into a fast pace, but might improve as the distances get longer.
Safi Joseph Jr. won this race last year with White Abarrio, and just reading a quote from Safi talking about Lord Miles, he said, the last time he had a lot to do, he didn't run a complete race. We're putting some blinkers on him, and hopefully they'll make a difference. I saw his work last time out at Palmettos. Actually, it was 2 works back on January the 21st. And Safi does this a lot of times where he works horses with a workmate who's probably not up to the caliber of a horse. And he starts Lord Miles, who's, the better horse, about 5-6 lengths back, and he closed into things. And that was the work that I saw, that he was wearing blinkers. And so I thought that was a very productive work. And at the wire, you can see Irad Ortiz Jr., who worked him, sort of got after him a little bit. So that quote from Safi made sense. He didn't run a complete race, and he sort of, was running in places. And in the work, you can see that, he was getting after him a little bit. And I think the blinkers could make a difference for this horse.
So this horse loses interest.
It seems that way. And so, he's now adding the blinkers, which could move him up and keep him more focused. His stablemate, West Coast Cowboy, breaks to his outside 12-1. He ran 4th in an allowance last time out. He sort of was one of those horses where he got everything his own way, breaking his maiden. And in that allowance race where he was, sort of rated from off the pace a little bit, he just, is going to have to get faster. And I think find a new gear for me to be in touch with some of the top horses in this race.
Yeah, he seems one-paced. He had the slightest of bobbles at the start of the last one, very slight. He ended up last, in a compact field of 6. He was in the clear. He was urged to touch. And then they started pumping on the turn to get him into the race. He just ran one pace throughout. And that was the allowance won by Legacy Isle in advance of Legacy Isle crossing the line first in the Mucho Macho Man before he was DQ'd for swaying out late.
Yeah, and Safi had this to say: we're giving him a chance. He's not fast enough on numbers. He's not a very good workhorse. I thought last time when he ran 4th in the allowance, I was okay with it when he ran behind a horse who won the Mucho Macho Man and was disqualified. We're going to see where we are. They're 3-year-olds. If you don't give them a chance, you don't know where you're at. So it seems like this horse is getting a shot.
Throw him in there.
Why not? You got to be in it to win it. Wayne Lukas has won many races in his career where people have doubted his chances. West Coast Cowboys 12-1. Shadow Dragon to his outsides 15-1 for the Peachtree Stables and William I. Mott. New York bred coming down to face some of the top competition. That's sort of a same mindset for me, at least with this horse, is, he's giving him a shot. He could run up at Aqueduct against New York breds. He's based on it pacing in Florida and giving him a shot here in the Holy Bull.
Yeah, he's been off for 97 days. In the Sleepy Hollow, which was a nice race for Arctic Arrogance.
Great golf course in Louisville, too, or Oldham County.
Which one?
Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, the Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, yes, in Oldham County.
Great golf course.
Fully ties.
Yeah.
But Shadow Dragon, he was outfooted. He ran in mid-pack. He was 3 wide in position, kind of one pace down the lane, and he ends up, running 6, beating 15 lengths. I don't know what to make of this horse. It does attract Jose Ortiz, but it does not attract me.
Yeah, does not attract me either. He's going to have to prove it to me, especially against open competition. Cyclone Mischief, who was the morning line favorite. I think he'll vie for favoritism at post time between Rocket Can. This horse is, earned a very fast Brisnet speed figure of 99, winning that allowance race. And I was surprised when the figure came back for that race because, I thought it was an impressive victory on paper. It just, getting a 99 Brisnet speed rating that's solid. And it made me double, think about this horse. We've talked about in length on this show about the Kentucky Jockey Club, and he was in that Kentucky Jockey Club, ran 7th, but he was only defeated by 2 3/4 lengths. But he was part of that blanket finish in the Kentucky Jockey Club where I don't know if I want any of those horses.
Yeah, but that race is getting better. Instant Coffee came back and won. Red Route I knew I was going to do that at some point. I thought I'd done a putty tat.
Yep.
Red Route 1 was a solid second last weekend. That race might be better than we think.
It could.
It might be. But Cyclone Mischief in the allowance at Gulfstream, he tracked in third down on the inside behind Rudder's Men and Mr. Ripple. Litigate kind of got the first run on him on the turn to his outside, but when Litigate came to him, man, he just kicked on and, inched away and was very powerful down the stretch. Dale Roman speaks so highly of him. It was a very professional win last time out. 5 3/4 lengths, definitely going to vie for favoritism in here.
I ended the show last week, if you didn't tune in, of part of Dale's quote talking about Cyclone Mischief. And here's the full quote. As Dale said, I think he's one of the best 3-year-olds in the country. He's training like one. There are a lot of good horses out there, but we're in a good spot right now. And then he talked about, starting him going out at the 1 mile distance to start his career. He's a horse we're pointing for the Triple Crown Trail. He got started late, so we started him out long. And so, he said he's coming into the race as good as could be. Shocker.
He's the 2-1 favorite.
He is the 2-1 favorite. To me, I want to see, again, I'm a naysayer on the Kentucky Jockey Club. And so I want to see, someone had to run second to Arabian Night last week, and it was Red Route 1. Steve Asmussen speaks very highly of Red Route 1, which, moves that horse up a little bit to me. But I think those horses are going to have to prove it to run, closer second or be closer to the top to be able to prove me wrong in thinking that the Kentucky Jockey Club was a stronger race than the winner, Instant Coffee.
And I've moved the Kentucky Jockey Club from the bad race column to the under further review. I'm the official looking under the hood right now.
Yeah.
Waiting for a little more proof. Ooh. Nothing definitive yet.
Hopefully you're not the official in the Bengals game. Anyway, let's move on. Mr. Bob, who was claimed from our good friend and 3-time Holy Bull trainer winner Nick Zito for $75,000 for Rob Falcone, adds blinkers, ran 6th in the Mucho Macho Man. He didn't have the best starts in that race. No. And I think he's, could do better going the 2 turns, but does need to get faster.
Yeah. As you said, adds the blinkers. He went to his knees briefly at the start. And, at that time, Jose Ortiz, it was Irad. It was up. He took a slight hold and the horse ended up, drifting to last. So look, he was 7th at the top of the stretch, kind of closed into the collapsing pace, very similar to the rail horse, Lord Miles. I definitely prefer Lord Miles, but Joel Rosario does take over. So that gives you a little, it just raises, why is Rosario riding this horse?
Yeah.
I don't see the appeal, but that's me.
I agree.
And it could be, by the way, that he has no other mount in the race. So,
yeah,
nothing else was available. But Mr. Bob is not a horse that attracts my attention.
Well, speaking of another horse that attracts attention, Luis Saez jumps on Legacy Isle, who breaks to his outside. And if this horse wasn't already speed, the aggressive Luis Saez can just add, I think, some more speed to this horse to be the clear pace setter in this race. He was a front runner setting those blazing fractions in the Mucho Macho Man. And we saw, drifting out late in there. Can this horse get the 2 turns by Shackelford? We'll see.
We'll see if he can go the extra 16th of a mile. He finally gets off the rail. He's had the rail in all 3 starts, 2 back in his first try around 2 turns. He sat and he came up the inside, and it was very workmanlike, very professional win in that allowance at Gulfstream in November. And then he made all the running in the Mucho Macho Man. And he drifted out late. He was hustled from the rail, drifted in the final 100 yards, and that cost him the victory. Interfering with Dreaming of Kona. So This horse intrigues me a little bit. I don't think he's going to necessarily be on the lead on Saturday, but one would make you think if they're putting Louis Saez up, he's going to be very forward.
Yeah, he was sort of forced in that hand when he's breaking from the rail, and I would think that he's forward. Another horse that,
but look at the race 2 back. He doesn't have to be forward.
No, he doesn't. He did pass horses two races back. That's a fair point.
But he could be tracking, Mr. Bob with the blinkers on, shows speed again. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Il Miracolo won his lone start in wire-to-wire fashion, but he's not as fast early as Legacy Isle. He's the long shot in this race at 20-1. Does get that jock Lionel Reyes, his jock that broke his maiden, back aboard. I think that's the lone positive for me.
Yeah, he was asked from the gate, and he was out-footed. He's sat in position in 6th down the backstretch, down on the rail. He was within striking distance on the turn, and then he came up empty in the last furlong. Not for me.
Rocket Can, who we've seen at Churchill Downs, who is 7-2 on the morning line odds. He is owned by Flank Fletcher, trained by Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado, who just won the Pegasus World Cup aboard. Art Collector does ride Rocket Can here, who Luis Saez was aboard last time out in the allowance at Churchill, where Confidence Game won in wire-to-wire fashion. And in that allowance race, Darren, Rocket Can just looked like he was going to go by at the head of the stretch and win impressively. And was it, to me, it wasn't Confidence Game battling back. I think it was Rocket Can maybe idling a little bit when he got alongside of him.
Yeah, that might be it. That Confidence Game, Ryan Hernandez Jr. just kind of nursed him along. Beautiful wire-to-wire win. Rocket Can tracked up on the outside with that big white face of his. And, Drew even went head and head leaving the turn, but he just couldn't pass. The race before, it was a nice victory. I think I like this horse a lot. I think this horse might be the play if he is the 7-2 second choice, as the morning line suggests.
He confuses me a little bit too. So that race, I didn't know what to make of it. Was it good, bad, or indifferent with Confidence Game, who did come back and he just ran okay.
An okay third,
right? He breaks his maiden in the slop by 2 lengths on Stars of Tomorrow one day, which we know how, washed out that track was that day. Did that move him up? And then you just see the head scratchers at Saratoga, where he did run 7th, but he was beaten 16 lengths by Instant Coffee. And Disarm, who we all thought was okay for Steve Asmussen, he was defeated 9.5 lengths from him. And so he was just well beaten from those 2 horses at Saratoga. The turnaround was very interesting. Maybe it was the 1 turn to 2 turns. I don't know.
That's the turnaround. I really believe it. With the Tappet on the bottom, relishing the Tappet broodmare tension on the bottom, that suggests a routed ground to me and a little more time. And Bill Mott, I just think this horse is going to get a nice tracking position in the clear on the outside, can watch, what the leaders do and make that run. And, hopefully get to the wire first, because that's the horse for me.
Yeah, he possibly could have worked with his stablemate 2 works back at Payson, where he went 5/8 and 102-1 was the bullet of 6 that day. And, Bill Mott and I think Chad Brown are at Payson maybe. So there's not many trainers that are at Payson. Wouldn't be surprised if those 2 work together.
And Cyclone Mischief, by the way, is clearly the horse to beat in this race. I think he's a deserving favorite, but this early in the stage, you want to try different horses. You want to forgive some excuses, possibly. The wild card to me in here is Lord Miles. Did he close into a collapsing pace that didn't necessarily collapse, if that makes any sense?
Yeah.
But it was so fast early, and we'll have to see. I don't see the pace as hot in here.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be as hot. It just, I guess would probably depend if how aggressive Legacy Isle is and Luis Saez is, or if they decide to track. And then if they decide to track, then I think it's a lot slower than it could appear on paper.
28-4-2. But no, I already screwed that up. 28-6-4-2 for the top 5 finishers in the Holy Bull.
So you're on Rocket Can. I am on Lord Miles of improving with blinkers on, taking a shot in this race. The Holy Bull goes as race 12 on Gulfstream Park's program Saturday, 5:43 p.m. Eastern time. Post time, you can wager on all the action down at Gulfstream on twinspires.com. Couple of other intriguing races down there in South Florida, Darren, where the weather is a lot warmer than it is here in the Ville. You want to go start with the Swale, and then we can work our way towards the back end of the car?
Sure, go ahead.
The Swale is a race where, you kind of see horses each year. They exit the Mucho Macho Man going a mile. You either see them as sprinters, or maybe it's horses that are a little bit slower to move along, and then maybe we'll try the 2 turns later on in the road to the Kentucky Derby Series down at Gulfstream. It's a 7/8 race going for the 3-year-olds. Again, Grade 3 Swale, talking about race 6 at Gulfstream Park. General Jim, 5-2 on the morning line odds, had all the trouble in the Mucho Macho Man, and his trainer, Hall of Famer Shug McGahee, decides to keep him at 1 turn instead of running him in the Holy Bull, but does add blinkers and could be an intriguing prospect, maybe moving forward and trying 2 turns on the dirt. Again, he's only 1 turn here. I think the blinkers are an interesting move.
As I watched the replay, what I learned is General Jim, he never got out.
Yeah,
he never got out.
Pete Aiello.
Yeah, he broke well in the race. He just wasn't as quick as the leaders in the Mucho Macho Man, and he tracked in 3rd. He was pinned in by Dreaming of Kona down the stretch, and then Legacy Isle kind of, and never gave way, on the lead and held his position. Not sure what to make of it, whether or not he would have gotten clear either way. I think that's why you're going to the turn back to 7 furlongs. This is an interesting race from a pace standpoint. I think General Jim's probably going to be, near the back of the pack in here. Super Chow's going to go to the front, who was used hard to grab the lead last time, used an ass for about 15 seconds before he finally made the lead up the inside after the break and went real wide on the turn down the center of the track. The 3 2 of a kind also broke well and chased Super Chow from the outside, but was empty on the turn. And then, the 4-horse, Araj, was fast early last time in his debut at Gulfstream. He was pressed by Collect This Money into the turn, and he finished wide late. If I was going to try one in here, just thinking he might get the tracking position, what kind of price? Let's see here, because my PPs don't have the morning line, but Araj in here at 6-1 is very intriguing because I think he might be sitting 3rd behind those 2 leaders.
Yeah, he seems one of those horses that are a little bit slower to develop type of horse, and maybe working his way to trying 2 turns in a month from Saturday in the Fountain of Youth. And so the Swale, Darren likes Araj. General Jim, another quote from Shug McGahee, which I thought was the most intriguing part of Shug saying about this horse. I think maybe in the long run, maybe grass, but after the fall, Mr. Adams, speaking of the owner of Cortland Farms, was anxious to try him back on dirt, which I had no problem with. He'll stay on the dirt for a while. So we'll see.
Yep.
But maybe turf.
How about the 8th race?
Yeah, the 8th race is a fun race where Tappet Trice returns following his gutsy maiden win at Aqueduct, which turned out to be a productive race. It's a first-level allowance going the mile distance. And again, the preview, likely you'll see the winner and any horse that runs well behind them in the Fountain of Youth in a month's time, which is on the Championship Series on the road to the Kentucky Derby. This horse, I think has a lot of Tappet in him, Darren, and I'm saying this from watching just his last work. I saw him fighting the rider Amelia Green, who's one of Todd's best exercise riders and assistant, and he was just sort of seemed like a Tappet in the work. And so he worked with a horse named Expect More, who was a maiden and ran 3rd yesterday at Gulfstream. I think he's trying to past that learning curve, and that's why I think he ends up in an allowance race rather than going straight to the deep waters in stakes events. But I think the race runs through him.
I think the race runs through the top three favorites in here: Tapit Trice, Shesterkin on the outside, and Classic Car Wash as well. The Tapit Trice, I mean, just a big lumbering stride last time. But he was away so slow. He was outfooted, and he went 4 wide into the turn in the clear, and then kind of surged late to beat Slip Mahoney. The slow from the gate concerns me, but when you watch his stride, I mean, distance is not going to be a problem. And if you're telling me, based off of the workouts that the exercise rider is continuing to have to keep Tapit Trice focused, that's a concern to me. And this horse is going to be the favorite. I mean, I'm convinced this will, it's 9-5 on the morning line. Shesterkin is 8-5 on the outside. I think Tapit Trice is going to end up going favored, and I might, if I'm ranking a top 3 in the race from a betting standpoint, I might put him third.
Interesting. He was only a $1.3 million purchase at the 2021 Keeneland September yearling sale by Mandy Pope's Whisper Hill Farms, and his breeder Gainesway decided to stay in for a chunk as well. So definitely the purchase price is going to catch a lot of attention.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, just a big, beautiful stride. Really does have, you can see the route is not going to be an issue for this horse. Yeah. Classic Car Wash, I think might be, he's fast, and he's kind of a fun, interesting little horse. Last time out, he ran on the all-weather. So what do you make of that? And it was against state breds. He didn't beat much. He was fast from the gate, and then he kind of loped on the lead. He just loped around there. He was pressed by Captain Anthony at some point. It was a nice win over Anam Stetic, and that who was the 2-1 second choice. But I like the way he did it. And then the race before that, when he was 7 furlongs on the dirt, he was inside of horses and kind of shuffled back. And then he made his move leaving the turn and proved to be just absolutely much the best. I was surprised to see him at 7-2 on the morning line. I thought he'd be a little higher than that based off of the field. But this horse intrigues me, maybe in the exotics underneath. Shesterkin for Todd Pletcher on the outside, gets Irad Ortiz Jr. This horse, of course, is named after the New York Rangers goalie, Igor Shesterkin for the New York Rangers. And he broke away on top. He was pressed by 4 on his outside. He went shoulder to shoulder at the 8th pole, and then he kind of, inched away slowly. And I like that effort a lot. He was the 3rd choice in that race. The runner up came up was 2-1. I just thought this horse really, really impressed me because he was the 3rd choice in that race. How many Todd Pletchers do you see off in an 8-horse field at Gulfstream Park go off at the 3rd choice?
Yeah, not very many. They're usually very well backed.
And that's why I don't think he'll go favored on Saturday.
Yeah, he just probably didn't have any people that he was impressing maybe in the mornings, and maybe he's just not a good workhorse and the word wasn't out on him.
And that runner-up was Case, who was away slowly. He was the horse that came up the inside of him. And, he looks like he'll be all right, but Shesterkin, I don't know. I really like that. So that's who I'm leaning to.
That goes as race 8 on Saturday's card, 3:16 p.m. Eastern time for the post for that impressive Fountain of Youth preview drawn for the first level allowance for the 3-year-olds. The Kitten's Joy, Darren, is the 9th race on Gulfstream's card and sometimes can have horses that will transfer that turf form to dirt. Do you see any horses that could jump on the road to the Kentucky Derby in the Kitten's Joy?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a horse like Major Dude for Todd Pletcher. It's a Bolt Doro out of a Distorted Humor mare. Maybe this is a horse that could end up going the route of, the John Battaglia / Jeff Ruby stakes. There are others in here that are probably, but that's the one horse that stands out to me. And of course, he is the 5-2 morning line favorite. So it's no nothing earth shattering. But Todd is not afraid to try things. This horse, of course, won the Pilgrim and was second as the even money favorite last time out in the Dania Beach. I could see this horse trying dirt at some point, especially with the ownership group from Spendthrift Farm.
Yeah, the other one that's interesting that Todd trains that has actually won on the dirt was Dude in Colorado, who's owned by Kirk Wyckoff's Three Diamond Farms, who won in wire-to-wire fashion in a race that was washed off the turf. He has Street Cry on the bottom side, Uncle Mo on the top side, so a little dirt and turf mixture, so may see that one on the road to the Kentucky Derby, but that horse coming off the turf.
Which moves to the all-weather.
Right. Oh, that's true. It does move to the all-weather, doesn't it?
But it does, but it could be, again, a Battaglia / Jeff Ruby type of horse. But they may try the dirt anyway, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the Kitten's Joy. That goes as 3:46 p.m. in race number 9 on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. The Forward Gal goes as the 10th race, grade 3 event there, where I'm really excited to see Red Carpet Ready return for the Ashbrook Farm and Upland Flat Racing and Rusty Arnold, who won at Churchill Downs. That filly looks like she's got a very bright future. Oaklawn on Saturday, Darren, has an intriguing optional claiming event for non-winners of 2 races for 3-year-olds, and Gun Pilot, who was the 5 1/4 length runner-up to the very fast Verifying, returns as the 7-5 morning line favorite. Protege is also in here, who didn't quite develop into what I thought he was going to be as a 2-year-old. Maybe he'll improve as a 3-year-old. Bourbon Bash, who's danced a lot of dances, stretches out to a mile. The very fun race 7 at Oaklawn on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it goes through the big favorite, Gun Pilot, who broke away on top last time, and he was about 3/4 of a length in front of Verifying, leaving the turn, and he just ended up being second best. Verifying's very nice prospect at this point. Protege, you think he's best at 1 turn or 2 turns?
I think deep down he's probably a sprinter, but I think they're going to give him a try in Ron Moquette's literal backyard of Oaklawn. And so, especially with the ownership group, I think they're going to try and give him a try. And this is another son of Good Magic who we're not really sure what they want to do.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just the closing sprinter type.
Well, and I see the Forestry on the bottom makes me, question how far he really wants to go. Last time, he in the route, he was away sharp. He kind of tracked. He was inside of 3 horses, and then going into that turn, he had to check real briefly. There was a horse to his outside who really had to check, but he hesitated too. And then he was just second or third best. He was also that same race. If you watch the replay, keep in mind when you're running 1 mile at Oaklawn, you finish at the 16th pole. Vic Stauffer calls him out.
Yes,
Bejarano,
yeah,
in the gallop out. Mr. Bejarano, you're going to need to learn how to where the finish line.
Jeez, welcome to Oaklawn, Rafi.
But he rode past the wire is kind of the point. So and the horse looked like he had no problem going the route. He was just second or third best behind Hipcho and Invulnerable.
Yeah, he's going to have to prove it to me. Bourbon Bash, I hope the coach can end up on the road to the Derby, stretching out. He's a little intriguing. City of Light, who don't really know if, a 2-turn route is City of Light's best distance. By Violence on the bottom side, or Out of a Violence mare. Did try the Breeders' Futurity, but was well beaten in there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do okay stretching.
Well, he stuck down on the rail last time, and he got away okay, and then he was pulled up by the jock real quick, the 5th. It's kind of a rough ride a little bit inside of horses. It was an okay finish to finish third behind Frosted Departure, who came back and ran fabulously the other day to Fight Hard, and also behind Two Eagles River. I'd want a price if I'm going to see the horse to beat a horse like Gun Pilot. But how about the Robert D. Lewis?
Yeah, let's talk about the Bob Lewis. We saved the Bob Lewis for last, and this is you cross out the owners and the trainers and you just look at the horses. This is a tough race to decipher. Who's going to the front? Who's tracking? And who's sort of best overall of this bunch for Bob Baffert? And Worcester's a maiden. Hard to figure who was well beaten in the Bob Hope, adds blinkers. Arabian Lion was very well backed at Keeneland, or at Los Al and the Los Al Futurity, and then as well as Keeneland, who ran second to Giant Mischief, and then Newgate, who ran second in the Sham last time out, and the Bob Lewis to his stablemate 2 starts back.
I don't know what to do from a handicapping standpoint. Anytime you have, it's just, you've got 4 horses trained by Bob Baffert, so no horse is going to accrue points. And they can set up the race whatever they want it to be, right? But let's just look at each horse. I think there's only 2 in here that you can kind of trust, right? Trust is the issue for me in this race.
Trust is the issue in my life.
Yes, it is. And one of them, I'm not certain I can trust, actually. Yeah. But Newgate to me is probably the most consistent in here. He was outfooted last time in the Sham, got beat a neck. The times before that when he ran in the Breeders' Futurity, it showed some confidence for Bob Baffert to put this horse on a plane to run at Keeneland in a grade 1. He was 3rd at the 16th pole. This horse to me just is the most trustworthy. The most intriguing is Worcester, who sat 3rd last time when he let Hijazi take the lead, breaking from the rail. And it was a good finish. It looked like more ground is wanted. He is a maiden in here. Makes you wonder, will Bob scratch one of these on Saturday morning? I don't know. Did he put 4 in there to make the race go? I don't know. Does this horse, but to me, this horse kind of fits in here. Arabian Lion probably ends up going favored in here.
You would think.
I would think just based off of the hype.
Him and Newgate, but there is a lot of hype. But again, as you talked about trustworthy, there was a bad 5th in the Los Al Futurity last time out, and he was supposed to come into Keeneland and win that allowance race off of that hype. And even though Arabian Night was the better of the stablemates,
well, don't forget, Arabian Lion did bobble to his knees shortly after the break. It was weird. You usually see him go to the knees right at the start.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of strides in, but he quickly recovered and he got beat by Giant Mischief. But again, like you said, he's supposed to beat him. Last time out, the Los Al Futurity, I don't know what happened. He was 4 wide into the first turn, and then he was totally empty on the second turn. Now they did go a little fast, 46-3. But he was 2-5.
Yeah.
2-5. And it was, so those are back-to-back disappointing, non-trustworthy performances. And then, hard to figure. He broke well, but and he was ranked. I'm wondering, was he a target in there for having a meltdown, who is a very nice sprinter? I don't know.
This is the true trying. I think again that we've heard Dale, we've heard Shug, we've heard Safi, we've heard these trainers say this before, trying to see if horses belong in this group of 3-year-olds stretching around 2 turns because there's not a lot of opportunities, and I think that could be for this horse. Hard spun out of a Mr. Greeley mare. Does he belong going 2 turns on dirt? I think that could be a big test on Saturday, but then
we'll see. This is definitely a watch race for me.
Yep.
I don't have a strong opinion.
Absolutely. You can watch that Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time from Santa Anita. Goes as race number 3.
Hey, one plug before we go. Tickets are on sale now for Kentucky Derby week at Churchill Downs and also the 44-day spring meet. If you're looking to come out to Churchill Downs for the Derby, there's select inventory still available in the new first turn club dining and the first turn reserve seats. That'll debut this year. It's a great area. You can bring 2 to 10 guests, experience, some upscale dining near the one of a kind 360-degree video board that's going to be inside it. And that'll also be open for Thurby as well. We have a number of, obviously opening night on Saturday, April the 29th will be Under the Lights. You have Dawn at the Downs Dining, which is the 2 dark days, Sunday, April 30th and Monday, May 1st. We have a new event this year. Champions Day used to be on Tuesday, and we decided to add an additional event, move Champions Day to Wednesday, 5-0 Tuesday. It is a nod to Louisville's area code and Tuesday of Derby week. We're going to pay homage to the local community here in the Ville, and general admission that day will be just $5. So a great way to enjoy Derby week at normal spring meet pricing. Champions Day is going to be absolutely sensational, especially if you're a big Secretariat fan. I don't know who isn't. This is the 50th anniversary of his Triple Crown sweep, and there's going to be a poster giveaway, a limited edition poster of Secretariat. I've seen it. It is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. The artist will be on hand to sign copies of it. We're also working with the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame, who is putting together a mobile Secretariat exhibit that are going to visit select tracks around the country this summer. We're excited to have that on hand. And then, of course, Thurby, which was created, it's hard to believe, it was branded 10 years ago, and it just took off from the minute the word Thurby was introduced. I remember asking at the time, is that spelled with an E or a U?
Yeah, we quickly found out.
I knew that was going to be a hit. My son was I can tell you what he would have been about 7 years old. So he was around the 2nd or 3rd grade at the time. And in March, we announced it in February. In March, I received an email from the teacher telling the parents that they're going to have a Thurby party in the classroom. And so I knew after 1 month's time that was a hit. And typically we get about 50,000 people on hand on Thurby to celebrate all things Kentucky, bluegrass music, bourbon, and of course the horses. So if you're looking for tickets, log on for Derby Week, KentuckyDerby.com/Derby Week, KentuckyDerby.com/Derby Week. And then of course the rest of the spring meet, which goes from April 29th through Monday, July 3rd. You can log on to ChurchillDowns.com/tickets. You got Twilight Thursdays on hand. Mother's Day is always a big day. We have 2 Downs After Dark events. One is on Friday, May the 19th, the night before the Preakness, and then another on Saturday, June the 17th. And of course, big days like Stephen Foster Preview Day on Saturday, June the 3rd, and then the Stephen Foster itself on Saturday, July the 1st. So a lot of things happening around here at the Downs. You got a lot of reserved seats available. Take a look at the inventory, and we hope to see you here on Derby Week.
Absolutely. Lots going on here, and we're just gearing up for the run into Derby Week. We'll be back on Monday for a Triple Crown preview show where the early nominees for the Triple Crown will be out, and we'll dive through a lot of horses that are going to be nominated for this year's series of Triple Crown events. Best of luck this weekend. Load up those accounts on twinspires.com, and we'll talk on Monday and play Red Board Monday here on Inside the Kentucky Derby.